Hello and welcome along to WD18, the Watford fan channel, for another video. We're going to be talking about all the transfer news, all the latest rumours, all the latest conversations around Watford Football Club. Some stuff released today, which got a lot of people talking on the new Watford kit, but also some, I'd say, more positive news about potential players coming in. Some news around players potentially leaving as well. So it will be all discussed today with myself, Jacob Colshaw, Charlie Zazera, Sam Yuko on the other side of the planet. Look, I think before we get into anything today on a Watford front, we have to, of course, acknowledge what happened yesterday in the footballing world, but just the devastating news around Diogo Jota, his brother Andre, really just tragic news coming out, which obviously sent shockwaves through the football world. But most importantly, we just wanted to send our thoughts, prayers and love to Diogo and Andre's family, his close ones, and of course everyone associated with Portugal and Liverpool, because it's just unimaginable what everybody is going through right now connected with Diogo and Andre. So yeah, just wanted to send all our love, thoughts and prayers as the football world did yesterday. And it's one of those things that really does put life in perspective when you see stuff like that coming out yesterday. So yeah, I think it was most important that we start with that today. On Watford, which really does feel insignificant compared to just that news. We're back again for another episode with myself, Charlie and Sam. Sam, talk to us about how you found out about the Watford kit today. I think we were going to go straight in with that because I was in town. I was getting a coffee. I was tempted to walk past the club shop to have a little look and a little browse. Let's just say I saw the trailer come out and I made a swift return going in the opposite direction to the club shop. So, what was your initial reaction when you saw it today?
Yeah, I think it is potentially not just the worst Watford kit I've seen in my lifetime, but it could be up there with one of the worst kits I've ever seen, to be honest. in terms of particularly with the sponsor, with the blue sponsor, I think it just looks absolutely horrific, to be honest with you. And I mean, I do think a lot of this is coming down, just to my opinion, on the sponsor generally. I'm sure we'll come on to it, but the club have made it very clear, I think, on social posts, that the club pushed for the sponsor to be black, but Mr. Q wanted it to be blue. But it just absolutely, it ruins the kit, and it's a shame because actually without the sponsor, it's actually all right. It's not my favourite Watford kit of all time, and it's probably not up there with the best kits that Kelme have made so far, but it's definitely better without the sponsor than it is with. And that's not to underestimate the amount of hard work that goes into making a kit like this. From the Rookery End, have done a fantastic podcast with the head of retail, I think, at the club, talking about the process of creating a new kit. But yeah, we've praised Kelme a lot over the years. But yeah, this one's a slight miss, made a lot worse by the colour of the sponsor on the front of the shirt.
It's mad though, isn't it, Charlie? Because I see it without the sponsor, and I was like, we put a poll out on our channels, make sure to vote, and I was like, I don't mind it. I don't mind it without the sponsor. The sponsor's slapped on in the middle, and it's an absolute stinker from my perspective. I'm going to present the sort of official press release, Charlie, but just talk me through your thoughts. Rocco Batta, the main man on show. But here it is. If we zoom in, Mamadou Doumbia. I say what,
That's very telling, by the way, that on all the promo shots, the club are very much hiding the pictures with the sponsor on.
Yeah, I think so. Charlie?
Yeah, I don't mind it. And again, I kind of saw it before the sponsor. Like when I saw the sponsor and it was blue, I was like, wait, was it blue last year? I don't think it was. So, yeah, I actually think this one would have looked better with black shorts. I think now we're going a bit more Ronald McDonald vibe. But look, I think Kelme have been great, and we praise them because like they get like unique, bespoke designs every year, and they try something a bit different. So, look, if one of them is not as good as the other one, I'm not too arsed. I still think Kelme are really, really good, and I'd love to stick with them. And obviously, they did an amazing job for us for the Mental Health World Cup in producing all those different kits in all those different colours. So, yeah, I don't hate it, but ultimately, it's all about the players that are going to be wearing it and if they're doing a good job or not. I am surprised that we've gone back to back in red shorts.
Yeah, that did throw me. I'll be completely honest. I also to be honest, Ronald McDonald's been mentioned. It really reminded me of what Alex tweeted here of Benevento Calcio. And it's pretty much the exact same as that vibe. Even like, I remember Nike did a sort of template or kit package where it had a very similar vibe. Like one you'd see at Power League maybe, when they like hand out loads of different kits and templates. But anyway, Bene Watford's been was the rumour going around. Look, it's a honker. But look, at the end of the day, as you say, Charlie, it's about what we do in that kit. And arguably some of the most memorable Watford kits, right, is based on the season rather than the actual design itself, Sam. And let's say we get promoted this season. Look, we'll throw it out there. Why not? We get promoted this season, have an absolute cracker. Granted, we'd all be looking back on that kit going, oh, it was horrible, but God, what a shirt.
Yeah, it's definitely got the vibes of, you know, when we're all a bit older and the club put the retro shirts on sale, that will be one, and I feel like everyone will go, that's an unbelievable kit, you know. But I think it's very much one that it's going to be dictated by how good this season is and how we end up doing in the league. And ultimately, if we do have a good season, I don't think anyone's going to be complaining too much. I must say, though, the goalkeeper kit is absolutely beautiful. I love a black goalkeeper kit. I know some people like it a bit more wild, but I think it's clean and it's a really nice kit, the goalkeeper one.
What's your thoughts on buying a goalkeeper kit, Sam?
I'm a fan. I'm a fan, particularly with Kelme. I think I bought, there was a purple one a couple of years ago, and there was the pink one last season that I bought that I was a big fan of. So, yeah, look, it's not something that I to be honest, I'd wear to a game or I'd wear out and about. But I think look, just for around the house, I think it's not too bad, you know.
Do you wear gloves with it?
I wear gloves, I wear long socks, and I wear shin pads. I say I don't wear it out, but one place that I personally would wear it out is the Mad Squirrel, which is the best beer in Watford. It's 7 minutes away from Vicarage Road, so make sure to head down there in the season.
Superb. Okay, we've touched on the kit. I think the sponsors, it's weird, isn't it? Because someone made a very good point that any PR is good PR with Mr. Q, because whatever anyone says about the kit, people are talking about it and they talk about the sponsor. Personally, Charlie, I'm less inclined to go to Mr. Q after seeing it on this kit than I was before. So for me, the PR isn't doing anything for me. But anyway, let us know your thoughts on the kit in the comment section below. I think splitting opinions a bit too fair. I'd say most people are saying it's not great. There is the odd person going, it's growing on me. On that, Charlie, when you're seeing the stuff coming out the club at the minute, the social content, the press releases, how are we feeling about what's happening at Watford? It's July the 4th. We're coming up to pre-season games. The players are back in. Transfer rumours are starting to come through. There's activity. There's rumours. You're seeing Gianluca Nani speak. Valon Barami as well, which is a real throwback. How are we feeling at this moment?
Yeah, I feel like it's been a bit of a roller coaster the last 48 hours or so. You guys will know. I don't know what was happening on Wednesday night, but I was being a bit of a mad ass, moaning about everything. I think it was when I saw that social video the club put out of Nani telling people about being late, which I just thought was terrible. I have no idea why that went out. And then, yeah, like shortly after the news that the Semedo deal got hijacked, which we'll probably get onto. Doesn't look like that is happening. Looks like he's still on. I think he's at the club training and stuff. So probably only a matter of time before he gets announced. And at that point, I was a bit like, I was in a bad mood. But yesterday, I'm in WD18 at the moment. I was getting the train down, and we saw some news filtering through. It felt like the Alamo really. It didn't stop. I think it started with, was it Mendy? We put in a bid for him. What else news did we have? We had shortly after about Pape Diallo, which we'll talk about, which really kind of changed my emotion. There was a bit of news about a Louza update. So yeah, now I'm feeling a bit more engaged. And yeah, after being on My Scout today and having a look at especially Pape Diallo, sorry, I've got a bit more enthusiasm back.
Sam, Watford might be spending some cash.
I know, the transfer war chest that we spoke about at the start of the summer. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and I just think it sort of feeds into that narrative of almost promotional bust this season. We are going all out to back Paolo Pezzolano and hopefully bolster the playing squad. I mean, to be honest with you, it's been quite difficult keeping up with all the rumours out here because, like you say, everything was kicking off on Wednesday night and last night, and everything's happening here for me in the middle of the night when I'm asleep. So I wake up, look through Twitter, and it's just an absolute bloodbath of rumours just everywhere, and I've got no idea where to look. So it's been difficult to stay almost on top of everything. And if I'm being completely honest, I'm not too sure on any of the players that we're signing in terms of I don't know who they are, I don't know their profiles, but I mean, it's the old cliche with football fans, and we're all guilty of it. From the videos that I've seen and what I'm reading, could be good signings.
Whisper it quietly.
The big one, I mean, we'll come on to it. I don't want to jump the gun here, and we'll touch on the new players first, maybe. But the big one was the news that the Lille ones broke last night for me. That's the big bit of news.
On our man Imran Louza, right?
Yeah,
just
correct,
to we'll talk about the right news.
Just double check.
So Lou Orns, who friend of the channel, has some really reliable contacts around the club. And a lot of what Lou tweets about Watford and the ongoing situations, normally 9 times out of 10, I'm pretty sure, even 10 times out of 10, has gone on to be absolutely bang on. So Luke tweeted yesterday that Imran Louza is having second thoughts about leaving. For context, it was reported by Sky that he'd handed in a transfer request and Liga and clubs were interested. Luke went on to say that Louza is happy to stay another season at the club after sitting down with Gino Pozzo at the training grounds. That's not to say he won't leave, but the player and club are aligned. Now, this for me, Charlie, was a huge bit of news for us, because I think I've said on this channel how many times I feel a lot of our hopes this season really does rely on if Louza stays. That's not to say that we can't have a good season without him, but he is just our best player at the football club. Technically, he's the best. You take him out of the team, it's hard to find a replacement. I even said that actually, without him, you almost need 2 players in the Championship to replace the ability that he has. Was there a part of you that just went, you know what, this is really big for us if this does materialise and we can keep him come Charlton at the first game?
Yeah, Sam's right. This was the biggest news yesterday, and I know it hasn't been fully confirmed or anything. And I think like's been said there, I think the fact, if it's true that they're aligned, they've obviously said, look, we want to keep you. We will sell you if we get a bit of X amount, but we are doing this. This is the project. We are bringing in these players. And yeah, we'd love for you to stay. And it looks like that Louza's kind of played ball. So like you said, he could still leave if an offer comes in. And I do think we should kind of brace ourselves for that, because he's a quality player and knows the teams could have him. But if we get an Imran Louza, player of the season last season, he will be the most important player for us next season off the back of what he did last season. I know there was reports he didn't get along with Pezzolano, but I think that's rubbish. There's pictures of them frolicking on the green grass of London Colney. So yeah, if we can keep him as the kind of fulcrum of our team, that'd be incredible for us going into next season.
Absolutely, and good shout raising that, because there was rumours flying around about Louza and Pezzolano falling out. That had been confirmed that was absolute nonsense. So that was really good to clear up. It really did feel like someone was putting 2 and 2 together with Louza wanting to leave. Understandably so, because we all know he could play at a high level. But at the same time, he's one of those players, if you want to have a successful season, you have to keep Sam. And I look at that midfield now as a wider point. 4-3-3 has been rumoured as the Pezzolano formation. We'll see in pre-season. But you have those midfield options, Kyprianou alongside Louza, Chakvedadze in the 10. Duomo then maybe rotating with either Kyprianou or Louza based on who's fit, or if you have midweek games. That looks good. That looks good if they stay.
Really good. Really strong. And I think I put this in our group chat earlier, but I can't remember the last time I've had such a positive feeling about signing than Kyprianou. I know we've been chasing after him for a while, but I watched some of him at Peterborough. I mentioned previously on the channel that I was at the Papa Johnson's Pain Virtue Trophy final, I think it's called now, final, Birmingham against Peterborough back in February, and Kyprianou completely ran the game. He was brilliant and scored a lovely goal. And Peterborough fans called him the protector. I think we need that in the midfield. And then that video dropped. I know we spoke. You mentioned earlier that video of Gianluca Nani. But if you watch the whole video as well, you see that there's some sort of fitness drill they did at the start, and it seemed that Kyprianou absolutely blew everyone away. Him and I think was it Dumbia just kept on running, and while players were just absolutely out of it. I think there was one of Matty Pollock just dropping to the floor while Cipriano just carried on doing laps round and round the pitch. So I've got such a positive feeling about that. And if we can have Imran Louza in there as well to complement Cipriano, as well as keeping hold of Chatfatazzi, rotating him with Duomo and maybe a couple of other options, I think that's a really solid foundation in the middle of the park.
Agreed. It feels like that relationship, if again, we always have to caveat if they do stay, Louza and Chatfatazzi, but Louza particularly, Cipriani breaks it up, the destroyer, Louza does the sexy stuff, and then we let the sort of front three do what they hopefully can do. And on that, Charlie, that kind of leads me nicely on to some attackers potentially through the door. Now, people have said this is the most crucial signing of the window. Who will come in as a number 9? You mentioned him as well, but also an attacker who can play left and right wing. So we'll start off with the striker, Charlie. And according to L'Equipe, Watford have bid €1 million for 31 can striker Alexander Mendy, and that roughly works out about £850,000. Reportedly, Mendy does want the move to join Watford. He's had offers from other places, but it seems like he's keen. Watford are keen as well. And his track record, Charlie, for someone, look, this is one where he comes in, there won't be a huge sell-on value because of his age and sort of the moment in his career. But if I look at his goal-to-game ratio in Cannes, bear in mind that'll be League 2 or even the league below, 69 goals in 166 games. And he knows where to find the back of the net. What do you know about him, if you know anything? And is that the profile of striker we should be going after?
I'll go on from what I know about him before. And before this morning, I dusted off a Y-Scout this morning for the first time in a long time. But I wasn't too high on him, just looking at the like his profile, his age, kind of the level he was playing at. I think Cannes got relegated maybe last season. I think they're also owned by Mbappe. So I don't know if he could pull any favours and come on Watford on loan for the second half of the season or something in a World Cup year. But yeah, Mendy is a proper box striker. His movement's really, really good. Kind of that front post movement of kind of playing off the back of defenders. And he's a big, stocky boy. He reminded me of Troy Deeney when I saw him. Like, big physical player. Probably not a prime Troy Deeney in the Championship, but like more kind of Premier League where he occupies defenders, but his movement's good with it as well. Really good in the air, good finishing on one-on-one, takes penalties. Like you said, with the goal record, 72 goals in 182 in the second tier of French football. He has scored 14 goals in 92 in the top tier. And I think he got 11 in 33 last season. One thing that kind of, when I looked into him a bit more, was encouraging was how strongly he was linked to Sunderland last season. They were very close on getting him. And if you know I don't know too much about it, but what I've read from Sunderland, their recruitment, their hierarchy, look at the players that they bring in, they know their stuff. And obviously they've got promoted, so they couldn't have done too badly. I don't know if they went for Isidore instead or what happened, but they were really, really close for him. He wanted to come to England. Apparently he's turned down offers for Saudi Arabia because he wants to play in the Premier League. But yeah, scores all types of goals. And after watching these clips, I'm a lot more high on him than I was. The second part of your question about is he the profile, it's just the age thing. And it's a bit like, if he's going to come in and be good this season, that could be great. But if he comes in and isn't good, it's a bit like meh. But I think there is low risk. He's got 1 year left of his contract. That's why the fee's relatively low. So look, we've got other players coming in, like we've talked about, Semedo, Dumbia, who played well. So maybe the age of that experience, he could teach those lads a thing or two. So I'm a lot more encouraged than I was.
I'm confident as well, Sam, that this will happen because judging by that L'Equipe article, as Charlie said as well, it would be the first time he would have left France in his career. And the fact is, Sunderland, as Charlie said, were linked. He wants the opportunity to play in England. He's got a good goal record. And as Charlie said as well, the €1 million would buy out the last year of his contract. Montpellier were linked, but it seems like a move to England is completely on Mendy's minds for Watford. So I guess a wider point, and I'll bring in the Semedo news as well, Sam. That, let's just say those two do happen. It looks like Semedo's done, from what we're reading, that he's already been in training. That's a young 21-year-old striker. Mendy, 31. Dumbia, 18. Would you want one more, or would you stick with the three and then reassess in January?
It's a really, really difficult question just because two of them are more unknown quantities. We know what you're going to get with Doumbia. I think we saw him progress really, really well last season. But we also know it's a huge, huge risk if we went into this season with him as our starting striker, just because, I mean, it's not a dig at him because it will come with age, but need someone with more guaranteed numbers, if that makes sense. I mean, of course, as well, we've got Mileta Rajovic knocking about as well. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with him as well. You imagine that he'll move on. So I mean, yeah, you imagine that Mileta Rajovic would
how much did Mileta Rajovic cost?
Was he $1 million? 2 million?
I think he was $1 million.
Yeah, $1 million as well. I think, Charlie, you just touched on something there in terms of risk. I feel like it's a low risk, high reward one with Mendy. I think if it's a good signing, then I think it's a really good one. And if not, I feel like it's one that we could reassess in January. Again, it is promotion or bust this season, it feels like. So whoever comes in is going to have to hit the ground running. But it's not. I do feel like one thing that slightly concerns me is that they keep on talking about replicating that forward line of the promotion season in 14-15, for example, where you had Dini, Gallo, Vidra, Forestieri. And one thing I'd say about them is that they were with 4 or 5 attackers all in the prime of their career at that moment in time, all playing their best football. Whereas here, it seems like we've got Doumbia, who is still developing. We'd have got the 21-year-olds. Semedo still developing as well as a 21-year-old first season in England. And then we've got Mendy, who's 31, who has never played outside of France in his career before and is probably slightly past his prime, hence his cost. I would quite like a striker to come in that bracket of 24 to 27, proven at this level, come in, score goals. So, yeah, I do think my gut is that we need one more striker in there, but I think that will hinge on Rajovic leaving.
And if you're listening to us on audio, again, Lou Orn's put out this graphic. If I can, has that come up live for you lads? No, it hasn't. Hold on. I'll share this. It's really interesting because it basically breaks down how the squad is looking at this moment. There we go. So you can see goalkeeper position, we've got 2, and then we'll have a third one. Right back and left back, we're pretty stacked. I'd imagine another centre back will come in, especially if Porteous or Tikvic go. Tikvic has gone, hasn't he? Or he's close to. Porteous will probably go. Then you've got Louza, Dele-Bashiru, who we'll touch on in just a second, Cipriano, Kiembe Ince, Georgie, Duomo, then Diallo, who's been linked, Vata, Bar, Sissoko. And then if you look at the striker options, let's just say we did sign, we would have Mendy, Vivaldo, Doumbia, Rajovic, Hurtado in that area. So, look, it's a really interesting one. But I do agree with you, Sam. I don't know about you, Charlie, just getting someone in that 24 to 27 bracket who can hit the ground running straight away.
Yeah, like we talk about Mendy, and yeah, the thing is, it's low risk, but he's not a guarantee, is he? It would be nice to have someone who's played in the Championship, knows exactly what it's about, and you'd feel a bit more confident hitting the ground running. But I suppose it's just so tough to get, aren't they, for a club like us? And there are not many going around. Is there any, Jacob? And I don't mean to give you a hospital pass, but I know you work with people who are well versed around Europe. Have you spoke to anyone about Mendy?
I have, yeah. I spoke to one of my colleagues at work is on the French team. So he's someone who's been around French, not the journalist, but the players. He's been, as you can see his track record, he's been around French football for a long, long time, and someone that a lot of people who watch French football know pretty well. He didn't really say he was a needle mover. That was kind of the way he looked at it. He said he's not a bad player to have in the squad. He said, would he come in and guarantee you goals in the Championship? He wasn't sure. I also did speak to this guy about Caben as well, and his assessment was pretty accurate about if he stays fit, decent player to have, but he's going to spend more time in the physio room than he will on the pitch, and that's proved to be right so far. So I do really trust his opinion on Mendy. He said, look, he's been great. He's got a good goal to game ratio in France. He knows where the back of the net is, but is he guaranteed to come in and hit the ground running? He's not totally sure. That was his assessment. So we'll see. I do agree with Sam, though. I think we do need another one in there. But I guess a lot of it will depend if Rajovic goes, if Hurtado goes. But I think another one would be good, especially because 46 games, lads, and that's excluding cup competitions. Maybe the club might go, look, we'll use these 3 up until January and then have a look. Or if there's a free agent opportunity Thumbs up.
Yeah, sorry, just thrown out there. And I know I was kind of half looking at this the other night and looking at that. Who's that player who's got championship experience that we could get? I think last video I just threw out Adam Armstrong. He's gone down with Southampton. Southampton have now, they're bringing in a young American player. I know Armstrong went on loan, didn't he, to West Brom. So that kind of player would be amazing. And the only other player that I looked who I thought would be really, really good, this might be out of our reach. So let us know in the comments, give us your suggestions. But Chuba Akpom. He had an outstanding season at Middlesbrough a couple of years ago. He went to Ajax. It hasn't really worked. I think he's had a loan spell at Lille. But obviously, he's from, well, he grew up at Hale End at Arsenal. So getting back down London, Colney. I don't know. Is that unrealistic? And is there any of those names that you guys would like?
I've got a shout. I quite like the idea of Ross Stewart, who was, I mean, he's gone down with Southampton, so you'd imagine that he could be a bit of use to them in the Championship. But he was absolutely on fire at Sunderland and helped them get promoted from League One a couple of years ago. Made that move to Southampton, where unfortunately I think he might have torn his ACL in one of his first few games and hasn't really played since. Got a couple of minutes towards the end of last season, but I'm not sure if Southampton, who will also be going for promotion for a top 2 spot, if they'll necessarily be looking to him if they've got another striker coming in. And I think we could potentially get him at a lower fee just because of his ACL recovery. And that it's probably a bit of a risk because you don't know what player you're going to get post ACL. But I wouldn't mind someone like Ross Stewart, to be honest.
I saw Chuba Akpom on the M25 once.
Did you say come to the Orns?
I mean, you'd imagine his family, or he knows a lot of people around us, considering the time he spent at Arsenal at London Colney, just jump over the fence.
I think it's a lovely shout, Charlie, and actually one that I look at and go, you know what, that's a proper Championship signing just because of that season. And if you can replicate half of what he did for Middlesbrough, I think that'd be a great signing. So one to look out for anyway, and would make sense. Semedo, lads, again, one that been brewing. There was this sort of rumours going around, Charlie, that the deal was being hijacked. Was it Lille who were being linked? But it looks like from what we're reading and sort of the rumours coming out that he's already signed. It's done, just waiting to be officially announced. I thought it was going to be announced with the kit today, actually. But yeah, any Scout research on him?
I haven't, to be honest. That one's kind of missed me by. I was in Slovakia when that kind of broke, and yeah, I don't know too much about him. I think on the last video I said that my issue was he's very similar profile to Doumbia. I've seen a few people I know. Luke said that they're quite different. Apparently, he's an absolute unit in terms of presence, really tall, really quick. So yeah, a bit of an unknown. And I tell you what, I did speak to who's a man that we had on the channel, Luca, a couple of weeks ago, who messaged me about Semedo, and he said he rates him really, really highly. Says he could be kind of a real good talent. So it's one of those where nice to have in the squad, but you can't rely on those players to get us promoted. But you never know, do you? Like when we got players like Vidra and Forestieri, they were pretty unknown. So sometimes the environment, if they have a good start, confidence could be flowing, could turn out to be an absolute Watford legend. We don't know. So yeah, I'm excited to see more of him, really.
Yeah, I mean, I need to jump off in a minute, lads, but just my final thought on this, because you mentioned his name there, Charlie. I slightly worry about Doumbia's development this season with a lot of talk about strikers coming in, and because the aim is promotion and going all out for this promotion this season, there's going to be less room for development of younger players in there, which I think is also going to be interesting to see what happens with the likes of Leo Ramirez-Span, Nabizada, and various other young players as well, whether they decide to stick out with the 21s, hoping that they get an opportunity to play for the first team, and or whether they decide to go out on loan as well. Obviously, Miles Roberts has already secured a loan move as well. I think is it to Walsall he's gone. I'm not saying by any stretch Doumbia should go out on loan, but I think we saw some real strides from him towards the end of last season when he was the one who was playing. But I do slightly worry that he could lose out a bit this season. But yeah, not meaning to end on a negative note there. But yeah, I think it's exciting. The last few days have proven, I think it's what the transfer window is all about.
No, it's a really fair point. Sam, as you go, I'm going to put this on the screen, which is some really exciting news that we'll get into as you leave. But it's about Pape Diallo from Met for £4.3 million, exclusive from Nizar Kinsella, football journalist for BBC Sport. We'll discuss that in just a second. Sam, any final words before you jump off?
Wow, he is leading HMS Pistol League. So get ready, because might be a questionable kit, but Paolo's yellows are taking us right to the very top.
Wow, big words. What was that the same thoughts on Wednesday, Sam?
Always the same thoughts, Jacob. Regardless of what happens, even if Milleta is up front for us this season, I have faith. I have faith. Got to. It's the best bit about football.
Nice one. Top man. Thanks, Sam. Look after yourself,
Cheers,
mate.
guys.
Make sure to follow Sam on social so you don't miss anything, even him tweeting about Craig Cathcart when he's on holiday.
Don't have too much in, Sam.
Cheers, guys. See you soon.
Take care, mate. Should we get into Diallo, Charlie? Because this is one that's got you excited. Now, I like seeing you excited, I'll be completely honest, because Watford takes out of all of us sometimes. But this one has got us, it's moved us a little bit, hasn't it? Firstly, the fee. £4.3 million is big for Watford. And let's not underestimate, that's big in the Championship. Not a lot of, well, don't get wrong, Birmingham is spending 15 million on Stansfield, but that's a completely different stratosphere to us. But that's a hefty fee for a Championship club. 21 years of age, predominantly from the left-hand side, can play on the right. He even played 65 minutes at left-back last season. I'll get a thread up from Luons, who's made a hat-trick of appearances today, about some of his best attributes. But Charlie, why has this one got you excited?
Well, firstly, he's one of the main reasons that Doumbia needs to stay, because then we'll have Mama and Papa up front, which could be fun. But yeah, when I saw Brady, I had to kind of double check, because not to say I knew much about the player before, but mainly because of the fee.
Yeah.
I think the last time we put down a fee like that was probably Ismail Kone, a couple of seasons ago in January, in the Ben Manga era. But this kid looks really, really exciting. He's from the massive Senegal Academy Generation Foot. I don't want to butcher that, but where you've seen like Papa Cisse, Sadio Mane, our very own Ismail Assar came from there, even Papa Sarr at Spurs. And they often make that journey from that academy, a lot of them to Metz. I know Sarr went to Rennes, didn't he? Was it Rennes that Ismail Assar went to? But yeah, they make that journey from Senegal to France, and they just have really, really good kind of football background to them, really great athletes. And this kid is exactly the same. He's 21 years old, but he's a big boy. He's 6 foot. He's massively right-footed, like a left winger. What I really like about him after watching his clips is kind of his positioning, because sometimes you have wingers like a Madueke who kind of hug that touchline and then kind of drive in. But this kid really likes to kind of drift in, and you often see him in kind of centre forward position, scoring tap-ins and stuff, which is something that I really like, and something I feel like watching Watford, the amount of time we've had players go to the byline and then cut it back, and Bayo's kind of watching it from behind or something. So, like, the players that he reminded me of were like maybe like a Wilfred Zaha or even like a Heung-min Son kind of goal scorers, but from that left. And yeah, he's just really, really exciting. He's scored 7 goals and got 4 assists last season. That was for a promotion winning Met side who got into the top tier. So that was in the second tier of French football. He has already scored 2 goals for Senegal in 6 games. So he's already playing. They obviously beat England. I can't even remember if he was playing in that game. I was there. But there was too many good Senegal players that day. But he also has played in Liga last season when Metz got relegated, and he scored against Rennes, and Monaco as well. So it's not like he's just a flat trap bully. And for me, Jacob, this looks like Watford in the Premier League type signing. Putting a fee down on a player who's got a lot of potential and a heart. I'm not saying he's Premier League quality. I'm just talking about the signing. It's so
I know.
It's so different to what we're used to, and you can't help but be excited. He looks like if he has a good start and kind of clicks, he could be a real game changer. There is one fear that I've got in him, but what are your initial reaction to him?
Well, I think for me, Charlie, I love the sound of him. It's the type of player we should be going after. I talk a lot about profile. Absolutely nails it for me with this. He'd be direct competition with Vata. across the course of the season, that is a great left-hand side for us. Even with the option of putting another, you can even put Bar on the left as a third choice. Not ideal, but he's more of a right. You get my point that you've got Diallo, Georgie on the left, exactly, Georgie on the left. So we'll be in a really good spot on that left-hand side. He's undergoing a medical today, 21 years old, 4.3 million, Senegal international. Look, he was linked with Slavia Prague this summer as well. That deal, for whatever reason, didn't materialise. Whatever we say about Watford, and there's been some shortcomings last season and over previous years, Watford is still a really, really attractive club for players to come, particularly young players, because we have a track record of developing players and giving them the opportunity and platform to show what they can do and move them on to bigger clubs. We'll touch on João Pedro in just a second as the absolute prime example of that. But also the pull of London and us being so near is a huge, huge pull that I think we have over a lot of teams in the Championship, particularly. As a player for Diallo, I really like the look of him. I really like what I'm reading and what you're telling me. One thing that really stood out for me was his work rate. And sometimes there's no doubting the players that we've got, but I just saw a few of his clips and his off-the-ball work is pretty relentless. When I then read up about Pezzolano and what he wants to instill in his players, there was a quote that was going round about basically he's a massive admirer of Luis Enrique at PSG, the intensity, the football style. He said, I want my team to have 11 players who will kill themselves to recover the ball, to do the same when we have the ball, to understand the game when opportunities arise. Individual players don't win many games, the collective does, and world football proves it. PSG are my favourite team, etc. And when you talk about intensity, from what I've seen from this guy, he's got it. So his stats look good. We can just hope that he delivers, Charlie. But I have to say, I'm excited by this one.
Yeah, really good point about his work rate. And like when I was watching clips, you can see him playing at like left wing back, which is mad. And when you said about that work rate, like last season with work I do with Viaplay, I was at Anfield a lot watching Liverpool play. And then another player that came up in my mind that really reminds me of him is Luis Diaz. Just that non-stop working back up and down. And yeah, he's an interesting player in terms of like he's actually got good kind of passing and link up like in between lines and 1-2s and stuff like that. So he's completely different to kind of Quadro Bar because I think he's got a bit more finesse about him in terms of the quality of his passing. Obviously, he's got good pace, but that's not to say he's an out and out kind of winger and a tricky winger. And I think there's something to be said about us having Ismail Assar and him seeing him play for us and in the Premier League. My last point is, and my biggest worry about him, and it's something that I said similar about the Semedo signing, is what does that do to Rocco Vata's development? I think everyone, when we saw Rocco last season, was really excited about the energy levels he brings. Some of the goals were outstanding. Sometimes he was hot and cold, but that just comes down to how young he was. So they're going to be playing in similar positions, or do you think Vata can play in a different position?
Do you know what, mate? I'm really not concerned about another exciting talent coming in on that side because, firstly, I think it raises the level immediately, and I think I'm not saying this would be Vata, but football players, if there's no competition, you can get quite comfortable because you know you're going to start every single week, so it almost forces you to raise the level. I also think the intensity, from what I'm reading of the way Pezzolano wants to play, must mean that it's not viable for these guys to play every single game in the season. Like we saw it last season where we were leggy at times. I mean, Sissoko's a great example. Granted, 10 years older, but he shouldn't have played as much football as he did. And I think there were some performances where we did look leggy in midfield. And if we're going to play intense, if we're going to be high with the press, if we want to play that style, look at the top teams. They have to rotate. And if we want to be successful, we're going to have to do it. So look, I'll just get Luon's tweet just to add to what you said, Charlie. Diallo isn't what you think he might be. Dribbling-wise, he can improve. He's quick, but not electric. His strengths are combination play and passing. Quite similar to João, but more lanky, speedy. He can handle his own strength-wise, but we will need to get him on the same diet João Pedro did. So that's kind of like a summary of Diallo, and it looks like that one's going to be confirmed.
Sorry, last one on Diallo. I think one thing that's important is we shouldn't expect him to come in and be the star man.
Yes.
Because of his age, and like you said about needing to fill out and playing in the Championship, I bet if you compare him physically to like a Quadro Bar, like he is quite slight in that sense. So I don't think he's a player that we should like make our poster boy and our key men. Hopefully, the plan is that we are keeping hold of Louza, Quadro, Bar, and they're the guys that we can look to. But sprinkling this bit of Senegalese sauce onto the team could be delicious.
We will have to wait and see. We've had a good bit of transfer news come in. A bank was confirmed for another season-long loan, which I think, again, massive news to get that done. What I have, I like to think we're pretty balanced on WD18. We'll call it out when it's not great. We'll also say when the plaudits need to be given out, and the flowers rather. And I have to say, Watford are doing really, really well to be proactive in this window. I have to say, I think it gets you. The optimism is higher when the deals are getting done earlier. And I genuinely, for me, when people go, "Oh, the deadline is X date or first game of the season," for me, that's completely wrong. For me, the deadline should be, you're looking mid-end July. Now, don't get me wrong, some deals are going to get completed nearer the first game of the season. That's just the nature of the market. But if you can get your key signings in early and get that pre-season under your belt, makes a massive difference. And I think that's one thing when you look at, is it Baxter, Kiprianu, Abankwa, Diallo's going to through the door, Bowler, we're going to have another striker on the way. So you're looking at 6 or 7 signings already. There'll obviously be a bit of movement. Sierrauta's gone. I think Porteous will probably leave. Dele-Bashiru, who we'll touch on just now. Now, there's a report coming out from Sky about...
Jacob, before we go to Tom Dele, the just last point on Diallo, and something that we kind of breezed over. But the fee, what do you think the fee means? The fact that we can afford to put down this much on a 21-year-old. Is that because the Udinese sale is... Have we just saved up from the year's time? Obviously, we've got that 4 million coming in from João Pedro from that buy-on clause after he moves to Chelsea. What do you think about us spending that much money and what that means for our financial situation at the moment?
I'm leaning more towards the last theory. I think it's the Pedro money going back in. I'm not convinced that Udinese stuff is making a massive impact to our finances, but I guess Sierrauta's moved on, so that's freed up a bit of wage budget as well.
And we got a fee.
Yeah, and we got a good fee. I'd imagine there might be installments from other deals, but I think particularly Pedro getting £4 million is a great move for Watford, and probably one of the most successful transfers the club have done in modern history anyway, in terms of buying the player for what we did, selling him on for what we did, still getting a bit more money for him, and the fact he's going to play I actually don't even think Chelsea's the ceiling for him, to be fair. I genuinely do believe he could go on and be a top player. He's going to be playing Champions League football. But in answer to your question, I think as you said, in the running order, Charlie, Watford's record sale of £40 million beating Richarlison to Everton. So it just shows how successful that deal was. I think it's that Pedro deal, Charlie, if I was to guess. Yeah,
I'm no expert at all. And it'd be good for you guys to get in the comments to let us know what you think the financial situation is. But it's positive, and it's a player. Do you know what I mean? I'm much more comfortable spending that much money on a player. If we were spending that money on Alexandre Mendy, I'd be a bit worried. But the fact that's a younger player, and if it all goes well, Gino should be able to flip that again and do another João Pedro and get his money back and then some.
Also, just on his market value, Diallo, it's around €4 million. So Watford are about where they should be for Diallo. That's just based on just transfer marks, but we will wait and see. It looks like a medical's going on, today, and hopefully as we speak. One man who probably will free up a bit of wage and salary and fee, Charlie, is Tom Dele-Bashiru. Now, another report from Anthony Joseph, who's been active with the Watford News this summer from Sky, said that Parma in Syria are in talks to sign Tom Dele-Bashiru. It is understood that Dele-Bashiru has told the club he wants to leave. Watford are open to selling him this summer and are exploring options for him, but only at the right price. Now, I think this would make sense for all parties, Charlie. What do you think?
If Louza stays, it makes sense. I really, really like Tom. And I think if you look back at the start of last season and different times, we've said how important we think he is. I did think he tailed off towards the end of last season, and he did have some tricky games, and I don't think he managed to get his confidence back. But I really like him as a player and a character. But if we are keeping Louza, with Kipriano coming in, talked about Duomo, that midfield's looking decent. If we can get a fee from him, it makes sense. And if he's unhappy, if he does want to leave. Do you know what I mean? He's been at Watford for quite a while, hasn't he? He came from the Man City Academy. I think he came when we were in the Premier League. It could be the right time for him to move on. And I think someone like Italy who'd probably thrive, and maybe he could get then a move back to, who knows, maybe the Premier League. But I think he has been good for us whenever he's been fit. And maybe it's just a case of circumstances where it's right for all parties.
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, to use the transfer market as a sort of barometer, they're saying he's worth around €1.5 million. So £1 million. Again, that frees up a bit of budget. As you say, if Louza stays, it makes a lot more sense. I think it's really interesting with Dele-Bashiru because I like him, but I think it's really difficult to divine, Charlie, what type of midfielder he is. Because technically, he's lovely to watch. He picks up the ball, got a good first touch. He's got a nice range of passing. But I don't really... He's not box to box. He's not a deep line playmaker. He's not a 10. He's not a... I don't really know what he is. He's more like a supplement player to someone else.
I think he's an 8 in a midfield 3, and he's got a destroyer behind him, and he's got someone more creative in front of him. I think his skills are taking it in tight spaces, moving it quickly. He has got a burst of pace when he can beat a man. But you're right, like he hasn't got that kind of superpower, if you like. And yeah, sometimes I remember waxing lyrical about him last season when he was kind of taking the ball in really tight areas and kind of getting away and beating men, and he just hasn't been able to find that rhythm. And he's not really a goal scorer, is he? He's not really a creative, like, through balls. So in the right team, I think he could do well because he has got the right attributes, but he just needs to find that. He needs to find that place.
Agreed. And I think if we're being totally honest, at this point, with everyone in the squad, he's a backup option. And if it means it frees up a bit of funds for us to reinvest, I'm quite happy to do that. But let us know your thoughts on Tom Dele-Bashiru. Let us know your thoughts on everything we discussed today. A lot to get into. We'll be going for about 45 minutes. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Charlie, anything else we've missed that you want to touch on before we head off? And look, we'll be back as it happens. But there is always something happening with Watford, so it probably won't be too long.
Yeah, no, I feel like yesterday was kind of the needle moved a bit, and we both had a bit of spare time, and even Sam from across the world, so we jumped on the video. I'd have liked to have been more proactive like this summer and done more stuff on Petzolano and our signings, but we're all just quite busy, aren't we? So we apologise for that. When we can, we'll jump on. And look, as the season comes to the end, we've seen the fixtures now. Charlton, although I'm fuming, have you seen Swansea's been moved to an early kickoff?
Is that
because it's on TV?
Oh, geez, it peeps, man.
So that's annoying. But anyway, once the season ramps up, we'll be doing your predictions. We'll be doing all the fun stuff. And obviously we're going to be reacting to the games as they happen. So apologies if we haven't been as active as I would have liked, but it's just one of those things.
I tell you what, have a look out for Jeff Doyle's piece with Pezzolano's assistant, and on the sort of tactical plan for this season. I don't think it's out just yet, but I know Jeff got a bit of time to break it down. So give that a read, give that a watch, and give us a subscribe if you fancy it. Leave a like on the video if you did enjoy. Comment down below your thoughts on anything we discussed here today. If you're on audio, drop us a 5-star review. A few people have been doing that recently, which really does mean a lot. And we will be back. Turn on your post notifications so you never miss us. And we will see you in the next one. Take care, guys, and up the audits. You want.